Hello, welcome to On the Bench. I am your host for this episode, Brendan Sinone. I don't know why I said hello. That's probably not necessary. I got Chris Nee, Zach Blostein joining me. Got Brett Nevitt on the ones and twos in the back. We're here. We're going to dissect, I guess, what this week was since the statement. I think we've already provided our thoughts pretty well on that as FSU's in the bye week, with just kind of status quo. I know many aren't thrilled with that. Some are supportive of it, and we're going to try to dissect, I guess, what we learned after coach availability this week. Before we move any further, a shout out to our sponsors, Chattanooga Whiskey, crushing it in the craft distillery game. They have something coming out pretty soon. I think I can talk. I don't want to do it. It's embargoed for later today. I can't do it, but they're doing a cool collaboration. Stay tuned. Looking forward to that. But in the meantime, just go buy a 111 proof because it's not going to steer you wrong. It's legit the best craft bang for your buck bourbon out there. And then after you've had a few pours, who are you going to call, guys?
The Turner
Group. Listen, you can call them sober. You can call them unsober. Whatever you want to do. The Turner Group's going to be able to help you responsibly get where you want to go. They are awesome and the home buying, home selling process in the state of Florida and Central Florida. Colin, Amy Turner, legitimately good people. Knowles, as Chris likes to say, check out their Instagram. That's really active, and they do a good job with that as well. Everything they do, good. Everything Chattanooga Whiskey does, good. This podcast, sometimes good. Let's get into it, guys. Mike Norvell spoke to media for the first time since right after the loss to Stanford. Chris, real quick, I don't think we really talked about that press conference. That was difficult for me to rewatch it. I know you and I have different wavelengths emotionally.
Post game,
yeah.
I mean, he was just very disappointed. It was abundantly clear that that game did not go along the lines of how I believe he walked in expecting it to go.
I think he also understood the implications of it from what he said this week.
Yeah. He spoke about the final play in that. He spoke a little bit about the game itself in some other ways. I asked him about where he thought he stood with administration. It wasn't very long, but Mike did what Mike does, which is forward-facing, answer questions, and give us the respect of the room, at least in that sense.
I will say before we go any further and we talk about, I'm sorry, I'm cleaning up a story I just did on the back end. Before we go any further and talking about what Mike Norvell said, what the assistant coaches said this week, I do want to stress this. Like, I do appreciate that Mike has always been very graceful, in public settings with the media. And I think you see a lot of coaches out there that are combative, that waste time. I do appreciate that Mike is thoughtful in talking to us. I mean, the answers are always what we want to hear, what y'all listening, watching want to hear. I get that part of it. But just as a person-to-person level, like that is a thing I've respected about him through his time with us. So as we talked to Mike Norvell, I thought one of the first things yesterday that came to mind, Chris, that was interesting to me, was him saying he didn't think the Michael Alford statement was for him.
I didn't love that comment. If I'm being completely transparent, I did take from that comment. I think he essentially meant that conversations that he and Michael Alford needed to have, they have. Like, it doesn't need to be written in a press release for that conversation to be had. That press release is more for the fans and others in the world, is how I took it. But I still didn't love the comment. The statement is directly about Mike Norvell. So, like, it is for him ultimately.
I almost did it too. Is that what you're laughing at, Zach? I almost Michael. Well, Mike is Mike Norvell. Michael is Michael Alford.
That's what he's going to be called until he wins the ACC game.
No, I don't know why I did that, to be honest.
It's fine. I almost did it too. It's a lot of M's to juggle. So that was one thing that stood out to me. Just generally tone, demeanor. I think the stress. It's very clear that this is a difficult situation for him. He understands that, and we don't have to sugarcoat it, right? Like that's very obvious to say he's wearing that, and that's the pros and the cons with Mike. Is like he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and this is clearly weighing on him. We get it. Like can we all agree on that?
Yeah. The only thing I wish happened yesterday was that he went more off script. Like Mike is robotic in some ways, as most coaches are in press conference settings, and like he alluded and at times even spoke to a degree about how Stanford was a miserable failure, that's not a very good football team. You allowed travel and whatever else to impact you in whatever ways, and You laid an egg and played horribly in a game that you desperately needed to win. But like you're allowed to kind of go off script there and point out that like it's not allowed. It's unforgivable. It's not something that should happen. And that, I did appreciate that he brought up it's not solely on just him. And this wasn't him trying to spread blame. He's always stood in the paint and took plenty of blame. He pointed out it's also on players, it's also on assistants, it's on the entire operation, and that is true. But I digress.
Zach, you were watching from afar. What did you view? I think the press conference room, as we're asking questions, I thought the questions were fair. I thought they were direct. I know there's some ask the hard question folk out there. I don't know if that's warranted, but I'm also obviously very biased in that too. I thought he was asked very direct questions. You were watching. Can I get your viewpoint on what he was asked, what you would have done differently, if you would have done anything differently, and how some of the harder questions or more direct ones were answered?
Yeah, I thought all the questions, or most of the questions, were like hard to the point questions that were also respectful. You know what I mean? Like I think you look at some of these other situations across the country, and I think going a few hours south to Gainesville and how they those press conferences go. I mean, they're often combative. That beat down there is very can get very antagonistic towards their head coach, especially when things are not going well. And I thought that you got like the collective beat asked really good questions yesterday to Mike. I think the disconnect with fans is that Mike does not often take questions head on. And when he does, he takes them head on, but he doesn't give an answer that's like what fans are wanting to hear. And I think that fans, including maybe myself, when I'm watching these press conferences, and I'm trying to listen for specific things that are going to make me feel better about the situation right now, you got to realize that that's probably not coming. Like, because you're asking a coach to like throw people under the bus or say that he's not fit for the job. Like, no coach in the country is going to do that. But I thought the questions were fair. I think Mike kind of, when he does answer some questions, they're long-winded, and he does he kind of falls back into his coach speak sometimes, which can be unsatisfactory to someone trying to kind of get an idea for what his true feelings are on a subject. But I thought the questions, if you're asking about that specifically, I thought the questions by the media were fair and to the point and not softballs.
I don't think anyone, I shouldn't say anyone, most people listening, if you're trying to get a satisfactory answer and explanation of what's going on, I don't think that's coming. Do we all agree? Like, I don't think that exists.
Yeah, I mean, I just,
it's an audio medium, Chris.
I know. I don't know. I don't really.
This isn't your cup of tea of what us dissecting media stuff.
Opinions, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, I've done this for 2 decades. I sit in that room. I'm perfectly comfortable with the questions I ask. If Mike Norvell loses to Wake Forest, I'm pretty confident after that game I will ask if he still thinks he should be employed by Florida State University. I'm completely comfortable with it. I really don't care about those people's opinions. Never have. Not going to start now.
But I'm asking.
I'm just going to stand there and throw anybody that works for him under the bus. We're not going to ask him in that moment, like, essentially, if he shouldn't have the job, because he does have the job. He was told Monday he still has the job. That's a stupid question in that moment. We are currently in the climate of knowing where he currently stands in his job status because of a statement on Monday. So on Wednesday, asking that question, other than tickling the itch of wanting that question asked, there is no reason for that question to be asked.
Okay. I knew I was going to get him going. I had to wake the guy up a little bit.
I think Hubster. I'll go ahead and name the poster. Solve questions. Give me a break.
Who's Hubster?
Whoever posted yesterday about solve questions or something. Give me a break. Like, no, not
doing. Come on, Hubster.
Yeah, come on, Hubster. Come on down, Hubster. You jump in the press conference room. You don't need to be credentialed to sit in there.
I'm not walking into a press conference to get in a fight with the head coach I'm interviewing. I'm also not walking in there not to ask the questions I think need to be asked.
I mean, he was asked. All right, so let's go through the transcript. He was asked whether the team still and the coaches still believe in him. Like, that's a pretty direct question. That's Liam what the Democrat asked him. Asad asked two really good questions. Let's see if I can find those. Well, I'm trying to find it. Okay. How would he define a breakthrough? So he's asking him to define the terms of his, like, what's needed to keep his job, basically. Like, that's what that is. And then he asked for follow-up. What would be enough for Michael Alford to keep you? Like, that's a really good follow-up. Like, so and the answers aren't satisfactory. I asked him why the team wasn't prepared. He said the team was supposed to be. Why not? And like, so the answers are the answers. That's my point. Is I don't think the way Mike Norvell operates are going to give you satisfactory answers.
I asked him what he thought the statement meant for him from the AD.
Yeah, and then Corey asked to follow up to it. It's like, I thought everything was appropriate. It is what it is. In that regard, if you're looking for your pound of flesh through that, I don't think you're gonna get it.
It's not our fault that people are miserable.
Depends on who you ask.
No, it's not.
It's the media's fault.
Always. I'm not playing ball with that. I'm over that.
I did like there was a poster today asking why Zach didn't write a column about recruiting. That's FSU Bone. We're calling out. Let's start calling out posters. I like this. Let's do it now. FSU Bone was like, why didn't Zach write a column about recruiting a year ago? If anyone in the world does not deserve any sort of 3, 2, 1, Zach doesn't deserve any type of ill will in terms of not sharing his opinion on a certain segment of Mike Norvell's job. He has been loud. He has been out in front of that. It has been a concern. He took a lot of crap from posters, from us even years ago. And so, no, he does not. You don't get to retroactively then throw him under the bus and say that he should have been writing that a year ago, and he's been yelling it for years. So, all right.
Come on, Hubster.
Come on, Hubster. Brett, that's the title for this, by the way, in case you haven't picked up on that yet. I did something. I posted to Knowles 24/7 a little while ago. People can go there and check it out. I think for me, it's helpful when we kind of enter these times of coaching searches or extreme unknowns. And we are in an extreme unknown of what's next, what happens from here, to write down what we know, what we think we know fairly well, what we don't, try to what we're kind of connecting. So I'll start doing that in the morning while I'm drinking my tea or coffee. Today it's tea. And then I was like, I'm just going to put this into fleshed out content and as well, and clean it up a little bit and whatnot. And so I put it to the board. What, Zach? Oh, did Zach breathe? No, he's muted. Okay. I thought you were going to say something. I thought you were interrupting me.
No, sorry. I was clearing my throat.
Okay.
Hubster.
Come on, Hubster. I think the big thing for me in what we know is, other than Mike Norvell still being here, is that there have been real conversations about what it would look like to part ways from him. And the answer, overwhelmingly so. And I have a quote in here that it was just powerful. It just stuck to me, out for me for days. And I was not sure how to disseminate it or whatnot. And this ended up being the right way to go about it. And there's no one coming to save us financially. And I think that's powerful. And it reflects on what we've talked to various sources about. And that's that finances are a factor in this. Like you're talking about a $50 million buyout plus, everything else could be upwards of $80 million to overhaul this. And then, everything you're investing in new staff, you're talking about over $100 million of commitments for the next, 5-6 years. So that's not insignificant. But the fact that there's not a golden parachute out there to save you from this misstep, or which certainly seems like a misstep in real time here as you look at what the last year and a half has been, FSU's in a precarious spot, I would say, guys. And I think that's the takeaway. And that's one of, if not the only reasonable explanations why Mike Norvell was not let go after losing his 9th ACC game in a row.
It's among them.
What else? Okay, so let's flesh that out. What else would be there? I think it's chief, but
I agree. I think it is 1A. Other things are, and I spoke about this, I believe, on Monday after the statement was made.
The first pod or the second pod on Monday?
Second pod, that firing a coach at this point in the season creates a lot of uncertainty in the sense of managing the current team you have down the stretch. All that being said, there's really not a good time anymore to fire a coach because the way the calendar sets up. If you wait till the end, you're brushing against signing day and creating a lot of change dramatically at the buzzer, basically, with recruiting. If you do it now, you're putting yourself in peril in the sense of how is the team coached down the stretch? Do players remain or jump off the boat, essentially, stuff like that. So, like, there's not really a good timing, but there is an element of consideration of timing that I believe went into Monday's statement / not firing the head coach at that time.
One thing about the statement that has just sat poorly with me for the last couple of days, and there's some things I've cooled off on a little bit, but one thing that I still just don't like is how it ends, talking about through the 2025 season, when I think it should have just been something like
Ongoing.
We're going to continue to evaluate the
yeah.
leadership of Florida State football. Yeah, and the other line in the last part that talks about how they're going to be fully committed to him and his staff. That was unnecessary.
That just doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, like what does that mean?
It doesn't mean anything. Because you're already full. You can't do anything in season.
That line which just infuriated me the most.
But like we know that they would be, if after the bye week FSU comes out and loses to Wake Forest, like they will consider firing him. Like that's fact that they would consider. I'm not saying they would. They would consider firing him right then. So through the 2025 season, it just would not. So we don't have to relitigate this statement. It is what it is at this point. One other piece of information I think is really important that Zach reported after we recorded the last pod, and we've talked to different people. And it's just been interesting the various points of views and how different players or sources close to players view kind of the temperature of the locker room. But actually, Zach, you did talk about it on the last pod, but we've talked to others since then too. And that's someone, a player told Zach that they thought FSU lost the locker room, or that Mike Norvell lost the locker room, the FSU locker room. I've talked to other people who have kind of echoed similarly as well. Now, I think Pete Nakos came out and had a report that was over on 3 about Tommy Castellanos and Deuce Robinson still being amongst the supporters. So, like, I do think it's fair to point out that it's not everyone. It's not this collective one-sided thing. But I did trying to think of when the coaches were talking about the team still is Tony White talking about the team playing hard and Mike Norvell talking about effort not being an issue. I do still have concern about like body language, eye contact, things like that. Like that does still exist. It's certainly not all in lockstep. I don't know how you can say otherwise.
Yeah, you don't get a 13-point performance at Stanford and feel the team that is not, or like is fully bought in on its coach. That's just not, that can't be the case. I mean, we saw it with our own eyes. Edwin Joseph, they had that exchange on the sideline. He goes back in the game because they don't have a better option. Like what kind of, precedent of accountability does that set for the rest of the team, right? Like if you are upset at the coach, you can just have that kind of encounter go on during a game and go back in the game. I understand he made good plays afterwards, but I mean, come on, like it does have a ripple effect across the team. And then, from what I heard, there's, I heard later that day on Monday that when they opened the facility, the new football only facility that FSU moved into this week, I heard that veteran safety Earl Little Jr. voice that he felt that like they didn't deserve the facility because of their recent play, which I thought came from a good place.
Yeah,
Earl's one of your leaders on the team, but that's something that an observer heard him say at the opening, the ribbon cutting of the football only facility on Monday. So yeah, that's
a toughie.
There's obviously little difference in opinions by different members of the team. That's bound to happen, based on their vantage point of what the locker room looks like. Certain players are younger and haven't been in the college game as long versus, some of your veterans have been around, some similar situations before. But, I don't know how much to put into this, but you would think when it's announced that the coach is going to be remaining employed for the rest of the season, or seemingly the rest of the season, that players would come out in support of that. And I think I saw one player, Jalen Matthews, post something about Mike Norvell remaining their head coach. I thought that was noteworthy one way or another. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. I hadn't even considered that, but you would expect it to be more.
Like a couple of the current commits came out and
you say that's my coach, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, Norvell, it's my guy, whatever. I think a lot of the players are honestly so scared of social media right now, and they just don't want to go on. Is what I would assume is at least part of it. I thought, in regards to the Edwin Joseph, and Mike was asked about that after the game, immediately after the game at Stanford, and then I asked Tony White about it on Tuesday during that press conference, and I thought his answer was interesting because to me, it kind of seemed like he was almost trying to get in Edwin's state of mind, where he was say, this guy just made a mistake, makes another mistake. Everyone sees it. It just costs his team 7 points. And he didn't say probably doesn't need, but I mean, that's how I interpret it. Is he probably doesn't need the head coach, kind of getting in his face right after that. The messaging, even for having the coordinators come out and be the first ones to talk after the statement, I thought was interesting. That was weird. Decision on FSU's end. Yeah, just these are strange times, and everything kind of this week has just been kind of fever dreamish, to where it's just I will be transparent. I had a level of, maybe I shouldn't talk about this. I don't know where I started it. I had a level of like just resentment towards administration for like trotting Mike back out there this week. I just like, what are we doing putting him through that? And I get that he's not a, he's to blame for the own mess that's been made. He's been compensated extremely well to keep coaching it this week and next week, and he'll be compensated well whether he remains coaching it in the future or if he's let go. But still, this is from a human level. It just was like, what are we doing? And I can't imagine it's good for the team for this environment to continue either. That's clearly a distraction, and it's weighing on players based on Zach's reporting there. It's just like none of it's good. And so I have a level of resentment there. And I talked to Chris about that before the press conference. And Chris and I just come at it from very different places. He's like, we just got a job to do. Like that's it. And I respect that too. And I understand it. And I think what makes this podcast and this website work is you have an emotional person over here, and you have more stoic, not to say that, Chris, you don't have emotions, but you have more stoic, matter of fact. It just kind of sucked. I thought yesterday sucked. I thought it was just a shitty day to go through professionally for everyone involved. It wasn't fun, but it's also part of the job. I get it.
It was odd and unsatisfactory, but that's wholeheartedly what I kind of expected walking through the door.
That was my nickname in college.
Chris, I thought you were going to say that's what you've come to expect from Florida State football. Yeah, it's going to be, speaking of, just doing the job, like, I think from here on out, with any, basic recruiting update that I post, it's the comments from the fans and, our Knowles 24/7 subscribers are not, I guess, going to be on topic when it comes to, like yesterday I reported that they set up an official visit. And people are like, oh, this is going to turn it around. I'm like, okay, guys, like.
Well, yeah, we have just, again, a level of transparency. Maybe I shouldn't. We all, to earn our paychecks, have to write a certain amount of stories.
Yeah, but reporting a kid's official visit is news.
It's part of the news, right?
Yeah.
I reported about Tommy Castellano's injury. Like, I understand that people don't care whether I understand that's peanuts in the grant, but we have to write about it. Like, we have certain things, we have a number of things we have to write. We have a duty to people who do care, whether it's 5% of the fan base. It is about Florida State football or recruiting or right now, like basketball season's turning. Like Chris was at a press conference that actually mattered. Like it was a cool. We could talk about that because it might be a palate cleanser. But like there's things we have to do that aren't just this. So just I get it. I don't find the minutia very fun right now. I usually love diving into the minutia. That's one of my favorite parts of the job, which is not something that is particularly fun right now, but we're doing it. Do you want to talk about Charlie Ward, Luke Laux? That was a little palate cleanser.
Yeah, they did a press conference. So FSU and FAMU will play an exhibition on Sunday at 4 p.m., $10 general admission. I believe you can sit anywhere type of thing within reason. They'll retire Charlie's FSU basketball jersey, which will be a retirement of both of his jerseys from his time at FSU. Charlie's obviously coaching at FAM these days. Luke Laux coaching at FSU. Thought it was a nice touch that Luke showed up with a Charlie t-shirt yesterday of him, FSU football, FSU basketball. Nice little hat tip to him. They've developed a pretty good friendship from what I understand here in recent years, but especially since both have become coaches in the area. Yeah, Charlie's one of the best people under the sun. He's a great human. He's a good dude. He's a very good basketball coach too. And that all conveyed yesterday. But it's cool. It's the first time, I believe, since 1991, the Great Pencil Brawl incident, that the two schools will play each other. I think the goal for everybody is to flush that one away.
Can you share that? Because there's people listening who don't have any idea.
I was 8 years old when that happened. So I wasn't there, and I don't specifically remember it. I've heard stories over the years and whatnot. From what I understand, basically, one player from each team had involvement with a female, and that got exchanged on court, and it turned into quite the tiff. And pencils might have got picked up on Media Row and considered to be used for something else, and just stuff like that. It ended up a 2-0 game by forfeit. But yeah, they haven't played each other. And honestly, a lot of sports since then, but definitely not men's basketball. But the nice thing is this year, men's basketball plays this exhibition. Women's basketball actually opens their regular season with FAMU. So it looks like we're, done with that and moving forward, which is always a good thing. And I think just add from the men's basketball perspective, I know from dealing with recruits since Luke got here and Michael Fly and that staff has gotten here, there's a decent amount of kids that will come in to visit FSU that will also visit FAM, or groups like teams or people that travel in groups for hoops will come with some kids that go to FSU and some kids go to FAM. So yeah, there's clearly an interest in essentially having some unity across the two campuses from a hoop perspective, especially on the men's side.
Sorry about interrupting that, Chris. Zach, you explain to everyone on the listening side what just happened.
Literally nothing. You're making a big deal out of it.
Gaslight. Is that gaslighting?
Sorry, Hubster. I think FSU basketball is going to be good this year, or at least a better product to watch.
I think it'll be entertaining. They'll score at a nice clip. That schedule is pretty difficult. They've got like 5 games that are way up there to Houston's, Florida's, a Duke of the world. So they're certainly going to be a tested bunch. They're going to be fun. I enjoyed the exhibition against Alabama. Defense got to get better. Can't send a team to the line 49 times, I think it was, or 49 free throws taken. But the thing I liked about the exhibition last week is everything that Luke has preached since early March when he got hired, as far as vision, the way he wants it to be, what he wants it to look like, the kind of players he's going after, what he wants them to be capable of doing. A lot of that you saw in actual action. And I always think it's a positive when a coach expresses something like that, and then you see it with players, but you also understand that like the players are listening to the coach because it looks like what he's also said he wants to do from like a system standpoint. Not that they're system heavy, but there's obviously elements of rules and things like that within what they're trying to do in a free-flowing basketball system. I think it'll be fun on the men's side. I'm intrigued by it and looking forward to covering the first year of it, in the sense of like truly covering the first year of it, because there's an element of it. There's a little bit of a learning curve there too for Luke as a college coach. It's his first go around doing that. Now he's got multiple guys on his staff who have been college head coaches, and then he's got another guy on his staff and Jim Moran, who's a high level assistant basketball coach at the professional level. So like he's surrounded by really good people, and Luke himself is an intelligent person who I think has a pretty good lay of the land. But it's going to be fun to watch that. There's going to be, he joked about in the exhibition, like the idea of don't take the timeouts with you, stuff like that. That is something that you kind of learn with the feel of the game as you do it more and more.
I feel like he's also punching above his weight class in recruiting.
They've been efficient at recruiting, I think is the right word. They don't have the money to go after certain people they would love to go after. and they accept that, they understand that, they know that. What I think they did a really good job of this last go around to assemble the team that they will play with this year is leaning in on specific analytics that they desperately wanted to have, which is, high level shooter or this or that, or what do we believe this guy can be better at that we can maximize and make him into a better player. For example, Chauncey Wiggins. Chauncey Wiggins won Clemson plenty of games last year. He also lost them their NCAA tournament game. He is a guy who is super intriguing because of the build, the size, the ability to shoot, the ability to play at 3 levels, the ability to do things. There's also an element of times like he doesn't look like he has any interest in rebounding. I'm saying that based on past performance. One thing I took away from the Alabama game is he racked up, I think, double-digit rebounds, if not real close to it. To me, that is something where I think it's clearly the staff getting after him about, like, you should be good at that. That's a doorway to professional basketball, whether it's the highest level or some level for yet the next level that you need to be good at. So I do think they'll be good at that. I think they'll maximize guys. I do like the roster they've assembled. Cam Miles, who's a freshman, like he plays with no fear, which I absolutely enjoy watching him do. Thomas Basong's super intriguing because he's a really, really athletic kid. Like he's raw in a lot of ways, and there's moments where he's not where he's supposed to be on the court, but like just pure athleticism on a basketball court and the ability to create things, maybe give you a spark once in a while when you're, in a rut. I think he's got some of that. That will be fun to watch too.
I was like 10 minutes ago pondering whether to ask Chris why he didn't want to be doing the podcast today. And now I know he just didn't want to talk about football. Like,
I'm fine talking about football.
You just didn't seem excited to talk about it, and I understand it, but the tone changed totally when we started talking about hoops. And that's understandable.
Here's how I view football. Monday's statement comes out. That means Mike Norvell is, without a shadow of a doubt, the head football coach to at least homecoming game versus Wake Forest next Saturday. So, like, all the other stuff really doesn't matter to me. Like, do I like it? Do I want to parse words? No, I really don't. What he does against Wake Forest will probably determine whether or not he's the head coach for whatever game is following that. I can't remember if it's Clemson after that or if it's
I think it's Clemson. I think it's at Clemson.
Yeah. So like that's where I'm at. Like I'm playing to the Saturdays, and when we get there, it is what it is, and I'm going to do the work that leads up to every game, like I always do, regardless of who the head football coach at Florida State is, and that's how I view it. But like yesterday's press conference didn't provide me any new context to the conversation that I didn't already have. It wasn't a particularly enjoyable experience. I didn't think Mike really differentiated from what his normal responses in most of those situations are. Obviously, the questioning was different because the situation is different. But in general, Mike answered like I expected Mike to answer. So like that's where I'm at with that. Like I don't know. I don't feel like joining a mob of angry. I think Mike Norvell should be fired. I said that matter-of-factly Monday morning. 2 weeks ago, I said I was done with it, and I am done with it. I'm just not going to keep repeating myself over and over on it. I don't feel a need to do that.
This does make me think of something that we've heard. This is one thing I don't put it's lower in the story because it's something I put lower weight into. Let's say there's a scenario in which beat Wake Forest, go up to crappy Clemson, beat relatively crappy Clemson, Virginia Tech. You rattle off 3 in a row. All of a sudden, you're believing again. Team's invested. You're getting results that we're losing. Games that were. I don't like these calling them one-score games when like you're getting on. You're needing an onside game, but whatever. Games where you're competitive losses. And they start turning into competitive wins. And then you're in a position to win out the rest of the way. And all of a sudden, you're say, okay, this could be sustainable for another year with Mike, which is where I think
who's saying that?
I think decision makers would be considering that when weighing the finances. One thing we've heard is that if there was a retention with Mike, there could be brought in I'll be transparent, a general manager who would be a full on like thumbs on the scale. Like they control everything with personnel, decision making, hires in the football program. Be more like how Major League Baseball teams are operated. And then that would be something that would be your hire. Like instead of going and buying out an entire coaching staff and the head coach, you'd be having that person run the direction of your program.
That would just my opinion on that is what's Mike Norvell's job then?
Coaching the team day to day.
But he's just he
And he's
doesn't
not on
call
the
plays, and he's not making roster decisions.
Maybe he goes back to being the play caller. I mean, doesn't Gus Malzahn's only doing the offense right now. He didn't seem very the Gus having the most fun he'd ever had in years is seemingly left the building.
I didn't like his response to that question.
I mean, he said that 4 times in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I just think the question specifically about what he's telling Mike during this tough time. This is a guy that he's
guys. I gotta say, I asked some good questions this last.
Yeah, week. But you think Mike's a robot? Gus is king robot.
I worry about Tommy's guts. How many more does he have? He's left him on the field so much now. Eventually, you're gonna have to get
the whole. I saw some people saying that Gus is out on Mike. No, I don't think Gus is going to sit there and tell a room of 15, 16 people that he's only known for a few months that he's having these in-depth conversations with Mike Norvell. That's just, I don't think that's Gus. I don't think that's his personality. I don't think that's how he expresses things.
I just think there's better ways to go about it than I'm just worried about the offense.
But that's Gus. That man is here to coach the offense, and he's going to make sure you know it. As to Brendan's point of GM shake, if you went, no, I think you know what it is 6 years in. I think it's time to move on in every which way.
Yeah. I just wonder if there's a major financial holdup, and that's why.
Yeah, I don't know that the appetite to do it definitely exists.
What?
In the sense of the people that would have to do it, not the fans, not all of that. The individuals who truly have to make a decision on whether to hire somebody or fire somebody. I don't know if the appetite is there, but I think
we need to send Chris to Saudi Arabia. Private equity.
PE Chris.
Michael Lombardi went.
One other dynamic financially that I think is worth talking about. Now, some of this is conspiracy theory connecting dots. Some of this is very much rooted in real reporting. So the real reporting part of it. And hopefully people are understanding the nuance and where I'm laying things. I'm not saying the GM thing's happening. I'm saying that's something that we've heard from one source. It's not something I'm reporting on. That was more of a let's talk about it type of deal. That's me being transparent. This is something, the first part of this is factual. FSU has had conversations with the Seminole Tribe of Florida to do some level of stadium sponsorship. It'd be Hard Rock. I don't know what exactly the name of it would be, but it would be something to do with the casino and that group. So, and that's been talked about for years. We've reported it back in the summertime. One piece of reporting that I've had, I would like to get it from one more place, but I feel good about it, is that the amount of money would be about, it'd be $10 million a year, which I think is on the lower end for what that would, what that should be. Based on what I've heard, this is also not my forte, transparently, but you would get a lot of that up front. It'd be liquidity. It'd be, if not all of it, which is much more appealing because then that gives you financial flexibility. And this was talked about before the season as being a thing, right? And so that financial flexibility, when you think of $100 million, so you've got all these projects, bricks and mortar stuff, obviously a buyout if you want to get out of the ACC in the upcoming years, you would have that for upfront just to get rid of it. So those are all things that are in play here. And by the way, the conference realignment and money to move when the time comes, if the time comes, is important too. That's also money that's probably being dog-eared, earmarked, whatever you do with the book. Wouldn't you call it a dog ear or earmark? I combine the two.
Sure.
Earmark.
Sorry, Colin. Hubster.
So anyways, that money, this is why we can never do social media clips, is because I don't just get a coherent sentence out. It takes a little bit.
Clip that, Brett.
That's something I think still exists. Chris and I both heard that it could be coming sooner rather than later. I don't know this for sure. Now, this is me speculating. But Seminole Heritage Month and the Seminole Heritage Game is coming up. That's the Wake Forest game, correct, Chris?
Correct.
That would be a good time to announce something like that. And the money and the cash infusion, if it is anywhere close to what we've heard with the liquidity aspect of it, it'd be convenient timing. Now, this is not what you had that money planned for, but having money to now do something with, or to have it in tow would be important. So that's me reporting, connecting dots, discuss.
Consistently, I've heard that it's a university thing. Like university side is handling it more so than athletics, specifically the president. So, and I know he and Tribe have had a couple really good meetings here in the last 12 months. I believe one down their way and one up this way for sure, where they've discussed the subject. So it's been an ongoing thing. We'll see if it gets across the finish line. It's been near there a time or two. I think July was the last time it felt like it was kind of potentially happening. We'll see if we get there in season this year, if it's something that is further down the road or just never comes to fruition.
Yeah, I generally agree with that. One thing that I will add is that I think it's as easy as it's ever been for university side and athletic side to share funds, right? Didn't that have to go through this past year for NIL, like for the roster, not NIL, but rev share to be shared? There had to be, and I'm looking at Chris as a lifeline for this to see if this can jar his memory. There had to be some sort of approval through the university or the state. I should look this up.
Yeah, I would rather research that a bit further before commenting on it. I believe that is something that did occur in the sense of making sure there weren't barriers for funds that were going from one place to the other as far as university to athletics or vice versa. But I forget the exact specifics.
Obviously, so do I. But I do remember that being a thing, and I would just, again, logically, finances are not my wheelhouse for reporting. I'd rather be scouting transfer portal prospects. But I think that is noteworthy that there's the ability to maybe move back and forth finances too. So I think we're done. Zach, I know you mentioned maybe talking about recruit. Do you want to talk about recruits real quick? Let's go ahead. We got like 5 more minutes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I've talked to a few recruits since the statement released by Michael Alford. General sentiment seems to be positive. I think you got to think from these recruits' perspective. I mean, this head coach, Mike Norvell, is the one they've developed a relationship with. As much as people say, "Oh, you're committing to the school," I mean, the coaches are the ones selling you on the school, and a lot of them are forming these relationships that are a huge reason why you're committing to play at that school. So I think all the commits are happy that Norvell is staying at least until the end of the season. I've talked to a few about the possibility, worst case scenario from their perspective of Norvell not being there for next season. And so, some of them mentioned like they'd likely open things up or at least hear other schools out. One encouraging thing that I heard last night from the top ranked commit was 5-star cornerback Chauncey Kennan. He told me that, I mean, he's a Seminole fan, through and through. I mean, he's got an FSU tattoo, and he mentioned that as a reason why, he did, regardless of what happens with Norvell, he seems pretty locked in, and would likely sign if there's a coaching change. So that's encouraging. And I think there's going to be some of that, especially full of a class with a number of legacy prospects. Devin Carter is an Auburn receiver commit that they flipped into the class over the summer. His dad is obviously Dexter Carter. Mike Ionata is a 3-star offensive lineman whose dad and uncle, I think, both played at FSU. And then Jonah Winston, obviously, is the younger brother of Jameis Winston. He's also in the class. So there's a number of guys that
Corbin Fordham too, Todd.
Yeah, Corbin Fordham, who they flipped from Ohio State semi-recently. So there's several commitments who have a deeper connection to Florida State than just this coaching staff. So that could mean that you see some commits, regardless if there's a change later on, remain with Florida State, or at least, kind of hold on to remain committed to FSU, and hear other schools out, but not just kind of as soon as there's a change, depart the class and not look back. I do think there's going to be some of that. I mean, you got to think what this situation could turn into if the season continues to go south, as I think we all expect based on the most recent result against Stanford. Aside from the obvious production on the poor product on the field, like opposing coaches can negatively recruit FSU as easy as any other job or any other place in the country. They can point to the huge uncertainty that comes with Norvell's job security exiting this season. And I think that's going to allow some other programs to kind of get into the mix for some of FSU's top commits. We'll see who that ends up being. I do think, I was thinking about this yesterday. There's a lot of change going on around the Southeast, schools that you consider programs that would typically, eat up FSU's commit list at a time like this. Florida obviously just made a coaching change. Auburn could be on the verge of one. But I do think, if there's some other schools, power programs in this region or across the country, they could come calling for some of FSU's top commits. So we'll monitor it. I mean, that'll obviously be a storyline the rest of the season.
I have a question on that, Zach. I'm not trying to be negative. How many players in FSU's recruiting footprint, if a new coaching staff came in in FSU's recruiting class, if Auburn or Florida or Penn State, if they got someone who came down to Florida quite a bit, like how many of those players would actively be trying to get poached by a new staff?
Like 5 to 7 probably, I think. I mean, as far as because you got to think
priorities.
Another part of this is a lot of these coaches and their recruiting classes are pretty set. And another new aspect to this is recruits are, I don't know about signing, but they're agreeing to deals as far as multi-year deals or deals that have some sort of for instance, I heard a player that FSU was trying to flip, before things went south, committed to an SEC school, had some kind of component of his contract that if he took another visit, or if he decommitted and wanted to go elsewhere, he had to pay back 6 figures amount of money to whatever school he originally committed to. So there's some limitations to players, player movement as far as decommitting and committing to other schools. We've seen some flips and stuff, so I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think it's going to be less likely to happen this cycle. But yeah, I mean, I think FSU's class, you're going to see, some guys head elsewhere over the next 6 weeks. That's just bound to happen considering the situation they're in. But it was encouraging to hear from a guy like Chauncey Kennan, who is the top ranked commit that they did beat out, a number of really high profile schools for, that he seems to be locked in regardless.
Mike Norvell was asked yesterday about recruiting in these times and in the situation, with a statement out there. And he said, short version, relationships are pretty long, pretty good with the kids. We'll obviously have conversations if they need to have it. Obviously, they'll hear negative recruiting from the other side of schools pursuing them. As for guys that I think would be high priority guys for other schools, I think there's probably actually maybe 7 or 8. Chauncey Kennan is obviously one, highly talented, but Zach got pretty good feedback from that young man yesterday. He'll have more on that today. Ernest Rankins, because the ceiling's very high for him. Devin Carter, talented receiver. Xavier Tiller, one of the better tight ends in the country. Isaiah Williams, because, go for 10, I guess. Jay Timmons, because he's ultra talented and really, really good. And then I think Jason Lopez is a guy I'd keep an eye on because of Miami specifically, and Tico Crittenden's another one. And I would throw Trey Bell in there. I love Trey Bell, but ranking wise, he doesn't fall into that same conversation.
Yeah, he's I talked to him as well. It sounds like he'll stay locked in if Norvell's there. And then, if things open up, I think that he'd be open to signing with FSU if the new coach wants him.
Yeah, for what it's worth with Trey, he originally, I believe, was identified by Randy Shannon. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, he was.
Stayed through that change. I love him as a player, and I think he's a well-rounded kid. Like, I think he's a solid building block kid for you long term.
I agree. Yeah, I like him a lot. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think that it has a chance to fall apart. And the one thing that the statement does, if you do end up firing Norvell at the end of the season, I mean, we're talking about FSU's last game of the season is on November 29th against Florida. The December signing day is 4 days later, 4 days after that game. So, if you're making a change at the end of the season, I mean, even if you made a change now and you couldn't hire until the end of the season, not a lot of time for that new coach to go and form and hold on to the recruiting class that they have and also add to it. As I'm sure
Transfer portal's later though.
I know Penn State has had a fair share of decommitment since the Franklin news. Florida has had very little to none.
I don't think any. Yeah.
Billy still recruits well even when he's not there.
It's interesting. Like it's the dynamics continually change because there's contracts in the world, there's finances in the world. With it all, it's much different than it used to be. I mean, it used to be if a coach got fired, vast majority of the class at least backed off or tested the waters a little bit and then came back. I don't know if that will be still the case this day and age.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
For the calendar and the finances.
Yeah, a lot of new dynamics that could change this. And yeah, I am interested to see kind of if we, a lot of these classes where you see, coaches fired this season, like what happens to them? Because like you said, Penn State has, I think they have less than like 10 commits now. Whereas I don't think UF has lost a single commit since they announced the Napier firing. And I do wonder how much that has to do with the financial part of it and what kind of contracts these guys have signed.
We good?
Yep.
I had another point I was going to get into, but I think we should just wrap it up. All right. For Chris Nee, Zach Blossing, I'm Brendan Sinone. This has been Noles 24/7's On the Bench podcast. We'll talk to you guys next week.